She fell, face first, onto the dusty ground. The groceries she was hawking scattered everywhere. People passing by gasped. "Isn't that the girl her own family treats like an outcast?" one whispered. Before she could catch her breath, her siblings came charging at her, each holding long canes, their eyes burning with fury. They didn't care who was watching. Her heart pounded like a drum. "Please, please don't flog me. It was a mistake," she cried, trembling. But they didn't care. To them, she was less than nothing. Why was she treated like this by her own blood? "Get seated, bestie. This story is cruel, devastating, and will leave your jaw on the floor. Watch till the end to find out the shocking truth behind her pain." The full story. It was a Saturday afternoon. The kind of afternoon when other children in the neighborhood were inside, laughing over cartoons or playing games on their parents' phones. In a quiet, gated compound somewhere in the heart of town, a different kind of story was playing out. Adina sat quietly on the tiled floor just outside the back door. Her back leaned against the wall. She wasn't crying. She had run out of tears weeks ago. Her eyes were blank, her arms folded tightly around her legs, and her small body trembled from more than just the breeze. The family lived in a decent 3-bedroom apartment. Not rich, but comfortable. There was always food in the house, clean water, electricity when others complained about blackout, and every child had school shoes and bags. Every child, except Adina. The kitchen door creaked open. Her mother stepped out, wiping her freshly manicured hands with a dish towel. Her expression was one of disgust, not concern. She looked down at Adina like she was something the housekeeper forgot to sweep out. "So you've been sitting here since morning, En?" Her voice cut like cold metal. "You're waiting for what? For us to beg you to move?" Adina looked up slowly, afraid to speak. I was hungry," she whispered. The woman folded her arms and scoffed. "Hungry? So now you know what hunger feels like? You think you're the only one in this house with a stomach?" Adina didn't respond. She had learned that any answer, right or wrong, could earn her a slap. "Oh, you think keeping quiet makes you innocent?" her mother continued, walking closer. "You entered my kitchen and took bread because God mistakenly allowed you to wake up this morning. You now think you deserve to eat?" "I didn't take the bread," Adina said in a soft, terrified voice. Slap came so fast, she didn't even see it. Her face jerked sideways and a sharp ringing filled her ear. She didn't want to cry. Crying would make them say she was pretending again. Behind the curtain in the sitting room, her older siblings watched. Her brothers giggled. Her sister rolled her eyes. "Let her go and die," her sister muttered. Always acting like a wounded goat, nobody forced her to be born. But none of them knew the full story. Even Adina herself didn't understand it. She didn't know why she was treated differently. She didn't know why she was never allowed to follow them to school, why she had to wash their uniforms while they got ready in the mornings, why she had to eat last, or not at all. She didn't understand why her birthday was always ignored, why there were no gifts, no cake, no "we love you." All she knew was that she existed, but somehow her existence was unwanted. Her mother picked up a half-used mop and shoved it at her. "Since you like sitting there like furniture, clean the whole compound, upstairs, downstairs, every corner, and if I see you near that fridge again, just know I'll make you regret coming into this world." And just like that, the woman turned and slammed the door behind her. Adina stared at the closed door. She didn't know what was more painful, the hunger in her stomach or the ache in her chest. She got up slowly, dragged the mop along the tiles and began to clean. No one asked if she was okay. No one noticed her swollen cheek. No one remembered that she was just a child. The day she turned 7, everything changed. The house came alive that morning by 5 a.m. The generator hummed faintly. The smell of fried eggs filled the air. Inside the boys' room, Michael was angry. His new sneakers hadn't been bought. In the living room, Rose twirled in front of the mirror, adjusting her freshly ironed school uniform and lip gloss. Meanwhile, at the far end of the house, inside a stuffy little storeroom converted into a sleeping space, Edina was already on her knees, scrubbing the corridor floor with bare hands and soapy water. Her palms were cracked. Her back ached. But she knew better than to complain. She had exactly 1 hour to clean the whole compound, sweep the front of the gate, wash the dishes from last night, iron everyone's uniform as always. But also, her mother had informed her that she was resuming hawking at the market with Mrs. Boehmer. Not for pay, not even for food, but because she was told that's all she's good for. Her mother's voice echoed from the kitchen. "Edina, you done washing the toilet? Go and rinse the bathroom sharp before Mrs. Boehmer calls you. You know she doesn't like waiting." Mrs. Boehmer, the neighbour who sold groceries in the next street. That morning, after finishing house chores, Edina was sent to her shop to hawk fresh tomatoes, pepper, onions, crayfish and other cooking items. That was her birthday gift, her punishment for becoming 7 years old. By 7:30 a.m, her siblings were seated in the back seat of their father's Toyota Corolla, windows up, air conditioner blowing, while their driver took them to one of the best private schools in the city. They wore branded school uniforms. Their bags had name tags. They had lunch boxes, tablets, and were registered for music and swimming classes. Edina? She had a tray. Her tray was heavier than her age, and dust-covered slippers that were 2 sizes too big. The moment her chores were done, she rushed to change into her faded dress, the same one she wore every day, and carried the heavy tray on her head. Her stomach growled. No breakfast, no water. Just instructions. "Go and sell everything before 4 p.m, her mother said. "If you bring back any unsold pepper, you'll sleep outside." As she stepped out of the compound, Mrs. Boehmer called after her. "Make sure you smile when you shout, 'Pepper, tomato, fresh crayfish.' Don't come back with excuses. Oh, lazy girl like you." She walked for hours under the sun, from one street to another, knocking on gates, avoiding rude drivers, dodging boys who mocked her, crossing roads with cars that didn't slow down for children like her. "Tomato! Pepper! Fresh crayfish! Ooh!" she shouted until her throat became dry. Some people looked at her with pity. Others chased her away like a beggar. She stood in front of a bakery at one point, the smell of warm bread pulling her closer like a magnet. Her eyes watered, but she stepped back. She didn't have the right to enter. Her tray felt heavier. Her legs were shaking. But she kept walking. By noon, it was scorching hot. She tried sitting under a shed to rest for a few minutes, but a woman shouted at her to move away from the shop front. She got up again, tears forming in her eyes. Still, she kept moving, because she had no choice, because she knew if she returned home too early, she would be accused of hiding the goods. If she returned too late, she would be beaten for disobedience. She was trapped, not in a prison with bars, but in a house with walls and people who hated her. Meanwhile, at that same hour, her siblings were at school, laughing with friends, taking pictures and sharing snacks during break time. They didn't ask about her. They didn't even remember she existed. To them, Edina was not a sister. She was an unpaid housemaid, a street hawker, a mistake that was allowed to live. But even Edina didn't know the real reason she was hated. No one told her the full story of what happened the day she was born. All she knew was this: she was born into a house, but never given a home. One fateful day, the sun was merciless that day. By 1 p.m, Edina's voice had gone hoarse from shouting, "Tomato! Fresh pepper! Crayfish, ooh!" Her throat burned, her lips were dry, her body felt too small to carry the weight on her head. But she kept walking, because going home with unsold goods meant another round of beatings. She reached a busy street near a shopping plaza. Cars honked. The air was filled with dust, smoke, and roasted corn. She stood by the roadside, hoping someone would buy something so she could rest her legs. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the tray on her head. Just as she stepped forward to cross the road, her foot twisted. The tray slipped, and in 1 second, everything came crashing down. Fresh tomatoes rolled into the gutter. The crayfish scattered across the tarred road. People hissed and passed by. Some laughed. "Oh, this one don't spoil her, Madam Market, oh!" "Nawa! Small work. She no fit do 'em well, lazy child, who send her come hawk." Adina fell hard, knees first, then collapsed into a sitting position on the roadside. Her elbow bled. Her pride shattered. Her lips shook, but she didn't cry. Not here. Not in front of strangers. She tried crawling to gather the items, but a black Lexus Jeep screeched to a halt nearby. The back door opened slowly, and a woman stepped out. She looked elegant. Heels, perfume, long braids, and eyes that carried both power and pity. She watched silently for a moment, then walked over to Adina. "Are you okay?" the woman asked, bending slightly. Adina didn't answer. She was too ashamed to speak. The woman's eyes scanned the girl. The worn-out dress, the dust-covered face, the injury on her elbow, and the way her hands shook from exhaustion. "Where's your mother?" she asked. Adina whispered, "At home." "You're this young, and they sent you to hawk under this hot sun?" She nodded slowly, still looking at the scattered goods. The woman bent down and began to help her pick up the fallen tomatoes. People stared. A wealthy woman bending to gather food from the gutter, helping a child hawker, but she didn't care. When she finished, she handed Adina a clean handkerchief. "Wipe your face." Adina hesitated. No one had ever offered her anything kindly before. Then the woman reached into her bag and brought out her purse. She counted some money and handed it over. "Go home. Tell your madam the goods were bought. Don't tell her what really happened." Adina blinked. "Why?" "Because I've been where you are," the woman replied, "and sometimes angels show up in the ugliest moments." Then she stood, gave her driver a small nod and entered the car. The black Lexus drove off, and Adina remained there, frozen, clutching the money in one hand and the handkerchief in the other. No one had ever helped her. Not like that. Not without shouting or conditions. She didn't know who the woman was. She didn't even know her name. But something about that encounter felt different, like a small door had just opened quietly behind the scenes. By the time Adina got home that evening, the sun had already begun to set behind the rooftops. Her dress was wet with sweat, her slippers worn down from walking miles across town. The plastic bag that held the remaining groceries shook in her trembling hand. But what scared her more wasn't the exhaustion. It was what she was about to face. As soon as she stepped into the car, she met Mrs. Boehmer at the front door. The woman's arms folded, lips twisted, and eyes narrowed like a hunter spotting a snake. "You're just coming back now?" Mrs. Boehmer barked. "What took you so long?" Adina tried to explain. "I fell. The tray slipped. But someone—" Mrs. Boehmer didn't let her finish. She snatched the bag from her and poured the contents on the ground, checking the quantity. But then she paused. Her eyes fell on the crisp mint naira notes in Adina's pocket. Fresh, clean notes. That's when her voice turned sharp and suspicious. "Where did you get mint money from?" She snapped. "Who gave you this kind of cash? You've started following useless boys?" "No, Ma, I didn't." "Shut your mouth! I don't understand." "You're just a child, a useless one at that. Is this how you want to disgrace me? Disgrace your mother?" By then, her mother had heard the commotion and stepped out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "What's going on again?" Mrs. Boehmer pointed straight at Adina. "Ask her where she got mint notes today. Very fresh money. Somebody that's supposed to be hawking tomatoes. She's probably mingling with street boys already." Her mother's face dropped instantly. "So after everything, after all I've been tolerating, now you've added shame to the list?" She walked straight to Adina and without warning, slapped her across the face. "Who gave you money? Talk before I peel your skin." I fell. The goods scattered. "A woman helped me," Adina sobbed. "She paid for it. She said I should go home." "Which woman?" her mother asked coldly. Angel from heaven or boyfriend in disguise? Michael burst out laughing from the corner where he had been watching. Mum, just check her bag well. She might be hiding iPhone there too. Rose giggled. This one, maybe she's hustling to change her status. Imagine, ashy knees and smelling sweat, but she's carrying mint notes. As Adina tried to explain, tears running down her face, a knock came from the gate. 1, 2, 3 firm knocks. Everyone paused. Her mother hissed and shouted, "Who is that?" One of the younger boys went to open the gate, and standing there was the same elegant woman from earlier, the one who had picked tomatoes from the street with Adina. She wore a clean jacket, neat makeup, and stood with an air of calm authority. "Good evening," she said gently. Adina's mother blinked in confusion. "Yes? Can we help you?" The woman glanced at Adina, her eyes softening when she saw the fresh slap mark on her cheek. "I came to ask if I could take your daughter with me to the next city," she said calmly. "I need a house help. She seems like someone who knows how to work." "I'll take care of her." The entire compound froze. Then Rose burst into loud laughter. "A house help? For you?" "This one," she said, pointing at Adina with a twisted face. "Madam, are you sure? At least you'll clear off space for us here." Michael hissed loudly and shook his head. "Madam, I'd advise you not to waste your time. She looks disgusting, lazy and slow. You'll return her after 1 week, I promise you." But the woman said nothing. Her eyes stayed fixed on Adina. Their mother wiped her hands again and gave a quick nod. "Please, go with her. And if possible, don't ever come back." Adina's heart stopped. No goodbye, no concern, not even fake regret. Just don't come back. She looked around at her siblings smirking and rolling their eyes, at Mrs. Boehmer who whispered something and laughed behind her hand, and finally at the stranger, the only person in her whole life who had looked at her with something close to kindness. She didn't say a word. She walked forward, slowly, 1 step at a time. Not because she had hope, but because she had nothing left behind, and for the first time, that felt like freedom. The car slowed to a stop in front of a massive black gate. 2 uniformed security men saluted and opened it without delay. As the car drove in, Adina's jaw dropped. The compound was huge, like something she had only seen in magazines. Flower beds lined the driveway, trimmed to perfection. A water fountain stood gracefully in the center, spraying water in soft arcs. The house itself was like a castle, tall, wide, glass everywhere, and white walls that sparkled under the evening sun. She clutched her small Ghana must-go bag tightly as she stepped out of the car. House staff in clean uniforms moved briskly across the compound. Gardeners, cleaners, cooks, even a gate supervisor holding a walkie-talkie. Armed security men stood at attention like statues. "Is this a house or a hotel?" she whispered to herself, completely stunned. No one yelled at her. No one shoved a tray at her or told her to sweep. Instead, a young maid walked up with a gentle smile and helped her with her bag. "Come with me, Auntie, so I show you your room." Her room? As she fell through a marble-tiled corridor with gold-lined mirrors and paintings, Adina's heart pounded. Who exactly is this woman? She can't be an ordinary person. The evening breeze was cold, but her thoughts were louder. Just this morning, she was flogged for collecting mint notes from a kind stranger. And now, she was in a house where even the maids had their own rooms. At 7 p.m, she was called into a smaller sitting room, different from the grand living room she saw earlier. It was warm, cozy, filled with books and the smell of lavender. Madame Evelyn sat on a soft couch in a simple white gown. No heavy makeup, no extra jewelry, just grace and power in her presence. She smiled kindly. "Sit, Adina." Adina sat slowly, still unsure of where all this was leading. "I know you don't know who I am," Madame Evelyn said. "My name is Evelyn Nwosu. I am the Minister for Education." Adina's eyes widened. Her lips parted slightly in shock. "You will start school next week," she continued. "Proper school. Uniform, books, backpack, everything. You're not here as a maid. You're here as my child." Tears instantly rushed to Adina's eyes. She bent her head to hide them, but it was too late. Her chest rose and fell with silent sobs. I don't know why God brought you my way, Madame Evelyn added softly, but I believe he doesn't make mistakes. Later tonight, I'd like to know your story. Everything from the beginning. Eat something, rest, then come back. For the first time in her life, Adina nodded to an instruction without fear, just overwhelming emotion. She wiped her face and whispered, "Thank you, Ma. Thank you so much." The following week, the black Prado Jeep pulled up slowly in front of a tall silver gate with the school's emblem boldly inscribed on it. Cedar Heights International Academy. A security guard saluted the driver, and the gate rolled open, revealing a vast campus with elegant buildings, green football fields, and parked luxury cars. Lexus, Mercedes, even a few Range Rovers. Adina sat quietly at the back seat, her uniform neatly ironed, her new school bag beside her. But her fingers were clenched, her palms wet with sweat, her heart beat fast. The driver came down to open the door. "We don't read Adina." She stepped down slowly, eyes darting around. Children her age walked past in clean, well-polished shoes, laughing, some speaking fluently in British accents. She could barely breathe. The receptionist smiled as she walked in. "Welcome to Cedar Heights, dear." But Adina couldn't speak. She just nodded and followed like a shadow. Weeks later, things weren't going well. Adina sat in class but didn't understand anything. Not because she wasn't intelligent, but because her mind was never present. The teacher would write equations on the board, and all Jessica could see was a tray of pepper on her head. The hot sun, the road dust. Sometimes a question would be thrown in class and other students would raise their hands, confident, sharp, and free. Adina would sit still, staring at her desk, her chest tight. Other times, she'd hear a loud voice in the hallway and jump, thinking it was her mother shouting, "Useless girl, you're not done with the chores and you're dressing like a princess." She would rush to the restroom, lock herself in and cry silently. Even break time wasn't any better. Most of the children gathered in cliques, speaking English fluently, comparing trips to London, their iPhones, their nannies. Adina had nothing to say. She felt like a stain on a white fabric. Different. Wrong. Useless. At home, Madame Evelyn noticed something wasn't right. Adina was always quiet. Her eyes carried sadness like old luggage. "Didn't you enjoy school today?" she asked one evening. Adina hesitated, then shook her head. "You're not coping?" Adina's voice cracked. "I try, but I can't understand anything. My brain is not working. Anytime I sit down, I just remember my past, hawking pepper, Mama screaming, my siblings laughing as they leave for school." Madame Evelyn's eyes softened. She took Adina's hands in hers. "You've gone through too much for a child your age," she said. "But you're not alone anymore, and you're not a failure." That same week, Evelyn swung into action. She brought in a team of support for Adina, private tutors who patiently taught her at home, going slowly, helping her connect the dots without shame, a therapist who helped her walk through the trauma, teaching her how to release the fear and believe in herself, and confidence classes to boost her self-esteem, helping her to find her voice. Day by day, something changed. Adina started to smile. Then she began to ask questions in class. Then one day, she raised her hand to answer. Her past was heavy, but Evelyn was determined to help her unpack it, piece by piece, until the burden no longer controlled her. Adina wasn't just in school anymore. She was healing, she was becoming, she was rising. Years later, time, they say, heals, but for Adina, time didn't just heal, it transformed her. She graduated from Cedar Heights with flying colours, top of her class in sciences, and was offered a full scholarship to study computer engineering abroad. Madame Evelyn, her pillar, stood with her at the airport that day and hugged her tight. "Go and make the world know your name," she whispered. "The world doesn't need to remember where you came from, only what you become." And Adina did just that. 7 years later, a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of the towering glass headquarters of Nuwasu Energy Group, a leading oil and gas firm in the country. The doors opened, and out stepped a woman in stilettos and a navy blue pantsuit. Confident, elegant, powerful. The security guards adjusted themselves. The receptionist stood up. "Good morning, Ma." Everyone now called her Adina Nwosu. That was the name that echoed through boardrooms and business journals across Africa. Not Adina Ume, not the pepper seller's daughter, not the girl who cried in toilets. She was now Adina Nwosu, CEO of one of Madame Evelyn's most powerful subsidiaries. The name change was more than just a new surname, it was a rebirth. Nwosu was Evelyn's husband name, a name she gave her not by blood, but by love, mentorship and destiny. Adina had dropped the name of the past, not out of hatred, but as a silent goodbye to the pain that once defined her. Meanwhile, in the political world, another name was ringing loud. Gideon Nwosu, Madame Evelyn's only child, the youngest elected governor in the history of the state. Just 29 years old, with a heart full of purpose and a voice that inspired both the old and young. While others campaigned with promises, Gideon campaigned with evidence. Of schools built, lives changed, and broken systems revived. He built on her mother's records. He once said in an interview, "If not for my mother, I would have just been another rich kid. But she taught me that true power is lifting others, not controlling them." Now, at a high-profile event organised by the state government, the two icons stood side by side. Governor Gideon Nwosu, CEO Adina Nwosu. Cameras flashed, people clapped, reporters whispered, "Isn't she the orphan Evelyn raised years ago? I heard she was a pepper seller. See how far she has come." But Adina smiled. She wasn't ashamed of her story. She had only refused to be trapped by it. She turned to Gideon and whispered, "You know, our mother Mama Evelyn didn't just raise us, she planted us." Gideon nodded. "And now the whole world is eating the fruit." Indeed, from the broken streets where she once hawked tomatoes to the boardrooms where her voice now held weight, Adina had become everything her past said she couldn't. And more. One fateful day, the city woke up to panic. Red X marks had been sprayed across gates, fences and rooftops overnight. News spread like wildfire. The expressway expansion project has begun. All undocumented properties will be demolished. Within hours, the streets of Okpara Estate were in chaos. Families cried, landlords begged, tenants packed their belongings in fear. But the biggest shock came when people realised who was on the list. Among the properties marked for demolition was Ume & Sons Enterprise, a dying furniture company that once fed an entire family. And just behind it stood a crumbling duplex with peeling walls and broken dreams. Adina's real parents' house, the same house where she was once shouted at for oversleeping, where she used to grind pepper at dawn and hawk tomatoes till dusk. The house her mother swore she would never step foot in again. Now, the government wanted to wipe it all off the map. There is city-wide panic. Men in fine suits scrambled for politicians' numbers. Old women fasted and prayed at junctions. Youth staged protests. But the government remained firm. Only properties with authentic certificates of occupancy, C of O, will be spared. No papers, no compensation, no negotiations. Fake agents began collecting money from desperate homeowners. 500,000 and I go help you get your paper plum. Just connect to someone in the ministry, you go day safe. It was corruption season and survival was the goal. Meanwhile, at the government house, Governor Gideon Nwosu held a crisis meeting. He knew the tension this project had caused, but he had no idea that among the hundreds of names on the demolition list, Ume & Sons was there. Not until a staffer handed him the final document list. His eyes froze. Ume? His heart skipped. He reached for his phone. Without hesitation, he called one name, Adina. In the glass office at Nwosu Energy Group, Adina had just wrapped up a board meeting when her secretary walked in. "Ma, the governor is on the line." She picked it immediately. "Adina, there's something you need to know. 2 of the properties on the demolition list, it belongs to the Umes." Silence. Her fingers trembled slightly. but her face remained calm. She stood up, walked to the large window and looked out into the city. The Yumes, her past, the people who gave birth to her, the same people who raised her in suffering, but also the ones who abandoned her when she needed love the most. Let me know when you're... The once vibrant Ume household was now a ghost of its former self. The compound that used to echo with the hum of machines and woodcutters was now dead silent. Dust gathered on broken furniture. The showroom windows were cracked and the family signboard hung by just one nail, tilted and tired. Inside the house, Mr. and Mrs. Ume sat on the threadbare sofa. Then suddenly, the front door flew open and burst in, breathless, waving a newspaper in her hand like it held power to change destiny. Dad! Mom! I swear to you, they won't touch our house or the company. We have to move fast! Her parents raised their heads. Eyes were turned hollow. Mrs. Ume croaked. What are you talking about? Rose knelt before them and unfolded the newspaper, her voice trembling with urgency and hope. Adina, your daughter, my younger sister. She's like a sister to the sitting governor. Look, she flipped to the centre spread. Here's the picture. This is her standing next to the governor and his mother at the Education Summit last month. She pointed to the woman standing beside Adina, dressed elegantly in a royal lace. You remember I told you years ago? That madam who took Adina away. She's not just anybody. She's Minister of Education. And guess what? That's her son. The governor. Adina is now their daughter. She even answers their surname, Adina Nwosu. There was silence. Mr. and Mrs. Ume stared at the newspaper, then at each other. Their dry lips parted in disbelief. You mean Adina is our saving grace now? Mr. Ume whispered, his voice cracking. Rose nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Only she can help us now. Just then, the door creaked open again. Michael, their eldest son, walked in. His face was smeared with dust and his shirt had oil stains. Mama, Papa, the site engineer just told us all to stop working. They said until the government finishes demolishing the marked houses, no more work. Mrs. Ume screamed and clutched her chest. So how are we going to be eating? That daily wage is what's feeding this house. Oh God, are we now beggars? Mr. Ume sat motionless, staring at nothing. The weight of guilt crushed his shoulders. The child we couldn't even treat as a human being, he said bitterly. The child who left here over 15 years ago and we never called, never checked on her. Mrs. Ume cut in, sobbing. We thought that woman would return her to us in shame. We thought she would realise Adina was a curse, a bad luck. We never imagined she would rise. They all wept. Tears of guilt, tears of shame, tears of what if. Then Mr. Ume stood up slowly, his voice low but firm. Let me die with the little dignity I have left. I won't go crawling to a child rejected. Tears had dried into salty patches on Madame Ume's cheeks. She hadn't slept a wink. Every hour ticked like thunder in her heart. The house she had lived in for decades, the company they built from scratch, everything was about to be wiped away. If they demolish our house, where would we go? She whispered, her voice barely audible. We will go to her, she said firmly, gripping her husband's hand. Even if she pours hot water on me, I'll kneel and beg her. That child we cast away may be our only hope. Reluctantly, Mr. Ume agreed. The security guards at Nwosu Global Enterprise didn't let just anyone walk in. But today they looked confused. The older couple before them looked tired, hungry and desperate, but they carried a name. Tell her Mr. and Mrs. Ume are here to see her, Madame Ume said shakily. Minutes later they were allowed in. Adina Nwosu sat like a queen behind her sleek desk. Her office was a vision. Elegant, commanding, silent. Her PA had barely whispered, Ma, there's an elderly couple to see you, before the Ume stumbled in. She looked up. At first there was no flicker of recognition in her eyes. Then a blink, a slow inhale. Her expression hardened slightly. They dropped to their knees. Please forgive us, Madame Ume cried. If they demolish our house, we'll be on the street by Thursday. Please help us. Adina sat back, staring at them. The faces that once watched her hawk Pepper barefoot while her siblings went to school. The same people who called her a burden. Now, here they were. Without saying a word to them, she picked up her phone and dialed. "Mummy," she said calmly, "Mr. and Mrs. Ume have returned, just as you said they would." Moments later, Mrs. Evelyn Nwosu walked into the room. Radiant, poised and dignified, with a soft but piercing presence. She found them still on their knees. She smiled. But it wasn't pity, it was calm power. She walked to a seat and sat down gracefully. "Before we talk about saving your house," she began, "I want to ask you one thing. Why did you hate your own daughter so much?" Silence. Mr. Ume swallowed hard. His voice cracked as he spoke. I am the only child of my parents. My late mother begged us to give her 7 grandchildren. When we gave birth to Adina, my wife started bleeding. Doctors said she'd never conceive again. They removed her womb to save her life. He paused. So we blamed the child. We treated her like a curse, like she stole our future. Mrs. Evelyn blinked slowly. "So you hated a child because she was born?" Tears rolled down Madame Ume's eyes as she added, "She is the 3rd child. We didn't want to disappoint our aged mother by not giving her 7 children as she desired. We were foolish. Please forgive us," Mr. Ume added in shame. "I wanted to die with the little dignity I had left. But my wife convinced me to come." There was silence in the room. Then Adina stood. She walked over to them, stared at them for a long moment, her expression unreadable. And then she whispered, "You're lucky I met Grace before I met bitterness." She turned to Mrs. Nwosu. "Mummy, what should we do?" Mrs. Evelyn smiled gently, her eyes misty with emotion. "Adina's story reminded me of mine," she began. "I was once a little orphan, maltreated, abandoned, brutally punished for doing nothing. But life turned around. I found favour. The same uncle and his wife who rejected me later, Kater, came back, begging for my help. That's why I believe you'll come back for her too." She turned to Mr. and Mrs. Ume, her voice firm but kind. "Life is in circles. Do good to everyone, especially the ones you think don't deserve it. Because the stone you kick today may become the pillar you lean on tomorrow." She walked back to her chair and sat down gracefully. "You may go now. We'll get back to you. Whatever the governor says, we shall communicate with you." Mr. and Mrs. Ume stood up slowly, faces weighed down with shame. But as they turned to leave, Mrs. Ume suddenly stopped and spoke, voice trembling. "Can we get her back as our daughter?" she asked. "I mean, nothing changes the fact that she came from our loins." Before Mrs. Evelyn could respond, Adina stood up sharply. Her voice was cold, sharp like a blade. "Don't ever dare to see me as your child," she said, eyes locked on Mrs. Ume. "If you do, I swear I'll tell my brother not to do anything about your case." Mrs. Ume gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "But Adina, don't Adina me," she cut in, her voice rising slightly. "I was nothing to you when I needed you most. I was only a curse, a burden, a mistake. So don't come now calling me your daughter because you think I have power." Mr. Ume lowered his gaze, speechless. Adina turned to Mrs. Evelyn and bowed slightly. "I'm sorry for raising my voice, Ma, but I won't let anyone use sentiment to rewrite my pain." Mrs. Evelyn nodded with pride in her eyes. "You've earned the right to speak your truth, Adina." And with that, Mr. and Mrs. Ume turned and left the office, silent, ashamed, and broken. 2 days later, the city was in chaos. The blaring sound of bulldozers echoed through the air as thick smoke and dust rose from the crushed remains of once proud buildings. Screams, cries, and confusion filled the atmosphere. Some residents fainted. Others collapsed, helplessly watching their life savings turn to rubble. The government had begun the demolition. Men in yellow vests marched down the streets with red markers and megaphones shouting, "If you don't have your original land documents or certificate of occupancy, evacuate immediately. We are not responsible for any damage done after this notice." Meanwhile, in the governor's private office, Mrs. Evelyn stood tall beside Adina, calm, composed, and quiet like a storm waiting to break. Governor Gideon Nwosu, a kind but firm man, glanced at the file in front of him and looked up. Law has no respect for anyone. Nothing spares them from this chaos. Mrs. Evelyn nodded. The governor leaned back in his seat, his eyes resting on Edina. You want me to protect them? Edina paused, then smiled faintly. I want you to treat them like they treated me. Forgotten. A long silence followed. Then he stamped the file and handed it to his secretary. Demolition continues. No mercy, no favour. Back at Edina's family compound, Mrs. Ume ran out barefoot, wailing as she saw government trucks pulling in. No, please, that's my house. That's our company, my children. The officials ignored her. The demolition officer shouted, No valid COFO? This structure is illegal. Bring it down. Crash. The walls caved in. The gates collapsed. Documents, furniture, vehicles all gone in seconds. Mr. Ume slumped to the ground in shock. His company, his pride, reduced to dust. Mrs. Ume turned to look up at the sky as if begging God to reverse time. Just then, a black SUV pulled up quietly. The door opened. Edina stepped out. Her presence sucked the noise from the air. Even the bulldozer paused. Mrs. Ume saw her and rushed forward on her knees. Edina, please! Please tell them to stop! We're sorry! But Edina stood still, staring at the ruins with no emotion. I begged you. You stole my childhood from me for doing nothing. Now life has spoken louder than me. You're still our daughter, Mrs. Ume cried. Edina looked her dead in the eyes. No, I'm the daughter of pain, and pain remembers. She walked away, leaving them in the dust, just like they once left her in the dark. At night, Mr. and Mrs. Ume sat at one corner, their faces stained with dried tears. Rose sat cross-legged on the floor, hugging herself, while Michael leaned against the rusted wall, staring blankly into space. Hunger groaned in their bellies, but shame screamed louder. Suddenly the silence shattered. 2 black SUVs slowly pulled up in front of the shop and stopped. Their headlights bathed the family in harsh light like Judgment Day had come. The Umes scrambled to their feet, startled, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. The doors of one SUV opened. A uniformed security officer stepped out, walked to the back door and opened it gently. Then Edina stepped out. She stood tall, dressed in a sleek corporate suit, glowing with grace and power. Her presence silenced the night. Mr. and Mrs. Ume gasped. Rose dropped to her knees, trembling. Michael choked on his breath. Tears immediately began to fall from Mr. Ume's wrinkled face. Edina, my daughter. Don't, Edina interrupted sharply, raising her hand. She took a few steps forward, her heels clicking against the pavement. How did it feel? She asked calmly, yet with piercing weight in her voice. To be rejected? To be cast out like trash by the very people meant to love and protect you? They lowered their heads, silent. Only the sound of Rose's sobbing could be heard. You did worse to me, Edina continued, her voice now trembling slightly. You watched me suffer, starve, beg, cry, and you walked away. But I made a promise to myself that if I ever made it out of that hell, I wouldn't turn into you. She took a deep breath. Get up. Come with me. They didn't move at first, too stunned, too unsure. Then slowly, like ghosts, they obeyed. They drove in silence. The journey felt endless. Finally, the cars pulled up to a well-fenced duplex with flowers lining the entrance and light pouring from the windows like hope itself. The gate opened. The family looked around, stunned. Edina stepped forward and handed her father a set of keys. This is yours now, she said. She turned to her mother and gave her a brown envelope. This contains documents for a business I set up for you. A full showroom, stocked with modern furniture. Staff already hired. Mrs. Ume broke down, falling to her knees. Edina, please, forgive us. We didn't know you'd become this. We're sorry. You are still our daughter. No, Edina said firmly, stepping back. Don't ever call me your daughter again. Mr. Ume broke down. Please, Edina, we were blinded by ignorance, pride. You were not blind, she replied. You saw clearly when you pushed me out. You chose cruelty, now I choose distance. She turned, looked at all of them one last time. I did this not because you deserve it, but because of who I am now. I refuse to let your bitterness define me. but don't ever come to me again." She paused, her voice cold as ice. "I am not Edina Ume. I am Edina Nwosu. You can't eat your cake and still have it." Tears gushed from Rose's eyes. "Sister, I was only a child. I'm sorry. Please don't leave us like this." Edina's lips trembled, but she didn't look back. Goodbye, forever. She walked back to the SUV, got in, and the convoy drove away, leaving the Ume family frozen in shock and drowning in regret, surrounded by blessings they never earned and the daughter they would never know again. Hello, besties, besties. Never forget, life is a circle. Those you cast into the gutter today might one day own the roads you beg to walk on. Be kind, even to the weak. Subscribe, like, and drop your comment below. I'd love to hear what touched you the most in this story. Besties forever. Bye for now.